What's up, Northport Bobcat? Chef Magliacane here, and today we are going to make buttermilk biscuits with sausage gravy. I know a lot of you have made biscuits before. We've made the sausage gravy before. With a lot of these videos, I want to kind of remind you of the skills that you already have so you can show them off at home. Buttermilk biscuits are very simple to make. They should only take you about 10 minutes to get together and get into the oven. And you get up early and you can make breakfast for your family. Or you can make it for lunch. You can even have biscuits and gravy for dinner. With the biscuit dough, there's a lot of other things you can do. I mean, we can put chicken on the biscuits. We can use that dough and make pot pies with it. So it's very versatile, and it's a skill you should have. We're going to start off with 4 cups of all-purpose flour. It doesn't matter what brand. Prefer to buy flour that is not bleached. It's a little bit healthier for you. We'll put that 4 cups right into our mixing bowl. And now we're going to add all of our dry ingredients. We've got 2 tablespoons of sugar we're going to put right in there. We've got 1 teaspoon of salt. And we've got a combination of our tablespoon of baking powder and a ½ teaspoon of baking soda. That little bit of baking soda is really going to improve our reaction so we get a nice rise out of our biscuits. We'll just put that right in there. We want to whisk all of our dry ingredients together now, just to get them mixed up really well before we add our butter and buttermilk. Now, I've been keeping my butter ice cold. I've got a ½ pound of butter that I've diced up pretty small. It is important that the butter stays cold so it doesn't mix in too much with the flour and sort of breaks up into pebbles. So I'm going to go ahead and add my small diced up butter to my flour mixture. And put it all in there. And then with the whisk, I'm basically going to cut that butter into the flour until it sort of gets pebbly. I mean, you do really have to smash it down. This does take a little bit of time. But this is what's going to make our biscuits nice and flaky. This can get a little messy. Make sure you've got a good clean space to work because we are going to end up pouring this dough out onto the counter to work. Now, if you've got a large cutting board, you can do that. I just use the kitchen counter once it's been cleaned and sanitized. We do not want to use our hands to mix this together too much because the heat from our hands will melt that butter and make it soft, and we want to keep it, really want to keep it nice and cold so it breaks up in there and it's kind of hard, and we'll have a nice little like pebbly mixture here before we add our buttermilk. This will take a few minutes to get done. Don't mind that piece. We'll get by without it. The dogs will get that later. Now, you don't have to use butter. We could use margarine. We could use shortening. We could use a combination. I had butter. I like butter because, well, it's buttery. It makes the biscuits delicious. You get a good flavor out of it, and it also makes them nice and flaky. Now, this is salted butter, so I did cut back the salt a little bit in this recipe. If you use unsalted butter, you may want to add a little bit more salt. It's not going to make a huge difference in a biscuit. We want them to be a little bit salty, just not too much. And we're starting to get pebbles here. It's starting to come together. You may have to use your hands a little bit in there to just kind of break it up. Alright, so you see I have kind of a pebbly mixture here, and some of those hunks of butter are still in there. We can still feel them. We just break them up a little bit more, but they don't have to be fully broken up before we start adding our buttermilk. Now, you can make biscuits without buttermilk, but buttermilk, number one, because it is very acidic, it helps the biscuits rise. It also adds a nice flavor to the biscuits. So I would recommend that you do get buttermilk. I'm going to show you some other recipes in this series that are going to use buttermilk. So it's not going to go to waste. You're going to be able to use it all up. We're going to measure out 1 3/4 cups of buttermilk. And actually, I probably want to shake this first. Mix that buttermilk up because it does have solids that kind of settle at the bottom. And we're going to measure out 1 3/4 cups. This stuff is thick, so the flour will take quite a bit of the buttermilk. If you're using regular milk, you're going to have to cut that liquid back quite a bit. I've got a rubber spoon here, and we're going to just start working the buttermilk into our flour mixture. You want to mix it all around, incorporate it really well, and you will see that the dough will start to come together. And we are going to need it all in there. At this point, I am going to have to start to use my hands. You really can't get by without using your hands when you're making biscuits or when you're doing any kind of baking or most cooking. To some extent, you're going to end up using your bare hands. Get the rest of that buttermilk in there. Give it another little mix and we'll pour it out onto our work surface. We'll get it rolled out and we'll cut our biscuits. Alright, get my hands in there now. I am going to flour my work surface a little bit so that the dough doesn't stick. We give it a couple mixes in the bowl. And now I'm ready to take this dough out and put it out on my work surface. Spray the excess off my hands real quick here. Put the bowl out of the way. And we don't want to knead this a lot. We just want to fold it over a few times till it comes together as a dough, which it's doing pretty easily here. It is a little bit wet. It will be a little bit sticky. That's okay. That's going to give us a nice moist biscuit. We want them to be not super dry. We're not trying to make hockey pucks here. We want something edible. And that's basically it. I'm going to wash my hands up real quick and we're going to come back and get this rolled out. Okay, I've got my hands cleaned up. There was dough all over them, so we really couldn't work like that. I've got my dough ready to be rolled out. What I'm going to do is give it another sprinkle of flour over the top. We want it coated in flour pretty nicely so it doesn't stick to the rolling pins so much. You're going to get a little bit on the other side too. And we're also going to flour our rolling pin. Now we're not going to roll this out too much. We want them to be like about 1 inch thick. We want nice big thick biscuits. So we're only going to roll it out a little bit. And it should be nice and soft. You should have no problem rolling it out. And try to sort of keep it in a rectangle or square so you can cut even biscuits. I'll talk to you about that in a second. That's about it right there. That is about 1 inch thick. And we're going to cut our biscuits right out of this. Now, I know what we've done at school is we've used the biscuit cutters before, similar to this. Ours are metal at school. And you can go ahead and do that. You can cut round biscuits out. However, today, I'm going to just cut square biscuits. It takes a lot less time, and we have a lot less waste, and we don't have to collect that leftover dough and re-roll it out and cut it again. So I'm just going to use a butter knife because I don't want to scratch up my countertops. And I'm going to split this right down the middle. And then split it down each of those halves right down the middle. And then same thing basically in the other direction, right down the middle. And then again. And that's that. I'm just making a bunch of square biscuits. And some of the corner pieces, they're not square. That's fine. They'll still be perfectly edible, and we go ahead and put them on the pan. I'm going to use some non-stick spray on my parchment-lined pan, just to make sure that those biscuits don't stick, even though I don't really think they would anyway. And we're going to start laying them out on the pan fairly close together, because it's okay if they cook right into each other. I've got my oven preheated already to 400 degrees. And these are going to go into the oven for, well, we're going to check them at about 12 minutes and see how they're doing. It could take anywhere from about 12 all the way up to 20 minutes, depending on how your oven runs. Every oven's different, so we absolutely do need to make sure that we're setting a time and checking them. Remember, We don't have set times on these things. Unless we're doing it all the time with the same exact oven, we can't know for sure how long they're going to take. So we are going to have to check up on them. I'm going to put them into the 400-degree oven, and we'll check on them in about 12 minutes. All right, I'm going to get cleaned up here, and then when we come back, we'll make our sausage gravy. See you then.